individually organized group of apartment owners in the state. And there's a good reason for that. We have a goal that this seminar today, the publication of our magazine, our consulting, our brokerage, our tenant screening, do one thing for you, and that's help you make and or keep more money than ever before, and help make your job of managing property, which we're going to talk about today, managing property easier, more profitable, and more enjoyable. Congratulations. Prop 21 went down in flames thanks to the contributions of many of you out there listening today, contributing to that cause. It's not over. It's not over yet. They're going to come after you again and again and again. They're going to come after us. They want our property. As an example, there's one city councilman, I think I've mentioned before, who was actually giddy over the idea that some housing providers were going to go into foreclosure because their tenants didn't have to pay rent. Why was he giddy? Oh, the city will be able to buy the property and then we can fill it up with the homeless. Well, that's just fine, and that's a nice goal to have if he would only use his own money instead of using our money, instead of using your money to do the same thing. But we won this time, this year, so that's over. I think we have to look forward to some lawsuits, and so keep supporting AOA Political Action Committee financially. Send in your donations on a regular basis. Those of you who maybe forgot to donate to this last campaign, send in your check for $1,000. Let's build up the funds so that we can be ready for the next one, because they will be coming after you. They'll be coming after you for tax increases on your property. They'll be coming after you for more free rent and for lower and lower rents. So keep up the good work there, and we want to congratulate you for this great win that we've had in Prop 21 going down. I don't know why the guy put it on there in the first place. Maybe he just wants publicity. Anyway, let's get on with our program. We're going to get some tips on property management from a great speaker today who's spoken for us before. And before she comes on, I'd like to turn it over to Jeff Fowler. Jeff, it's all yours.
Okay, great. Yes, well, welcome everybody. Good morning. And just want to remind you that we have the YouTube channel there that you can subscribe to. And if you like the content today, go ahead and hit a like for that. Share it with your friends. And also want to remind you that there is an e-newsletter that we send out. And be sure to sign up for that. You can find that information on the website, or just call in. Give them your name, first name, last name, zip code, and email address, and they'll set you up so that you don't miss any updates and news about events as well. And so we're excited. Next week we have another live stream coming up that's going to be about roofing and how you can be prepared and proactive and plan well to maintain that. And so don't miss out on that one. The week after that, on the 19th, we'll also have another webinar, another live stream with Dennis Block, and he'll answer lots of your landlord tenant law questions. So, and again, Dan told you about the AOA, our mission already. I just wanted to highlight one thing for you, and that's our magazine. And you see it right here. If you're not getting it, it's because you're not a member. And so go ahead and become a member. This is one of the benefits. You get this every month. And I just wanted to highlight that this magazine, although the cover looks the same, it's different in different areas. Each area, we have 9 different areas that this magazine goes to. And so we actually have a column where we answered legal questions. And so Dennis Block answers those here in the Southern California area. Up in Northern California, we have Richard Beckman that does that. And then down in San Diego, we have Franco Simone. So we have different questions in each of these magazines, and lots of good ones. This magazine just came out. You'll be getting it if you're a member probably in the next week or so. And anyway, we also have a lot of vendors for you to pick from, and let us know how that goes for you, and we can help you if there's any problems. But they're supporting our industry, so I just wanted to highlight that for you. And before we get started, our speaker today is very credible and knows a lot, and will be able to answer a lot of questions regarding property management. So if you're watching on the AOA website, there's a little blue help button. If you click on that, you can enter your questions, and they'll get those questions to us once we get started, as well as in YouTube and Facebook. You'll be able to submit questions there, and we'll go ahead and we'll get to you. But she does have a lot of good content today to share, and so I'll go ahead and just get started with introduction. So this event is being brought to you by Reynolds Realty Advisors, and they've been around since 2007, and they manage over 6,000 doors. Yeah, they manage a lot of doors, and they have 40 years experience, and what they really pride themselves on is getting the best prices possible, whether it be labor, whether it be materials, whatever they're doing. They're very efficient, and they're just solid in their accounting and every other aspect. And so you can check them out and see how other people review them. If you happen to be listening today and you're a client of theirs, go ahead and give them a shout out, maybe on the YouTube channel, so people could see that. And they have a mission statement to support their clients to be effective, efficient, and as leveraged as possible, so that they can make more money in less time, and to maximize the output and minimizes the input, like I talked about, and live abundantly and reach your goals and be successful by creating and make you a customer for life because they make you successful. So on to our speaker today. She's the owner of Reynolds Realty Advisors, and she just has a tremendous background. She worked for multiple Fortune 500 companies, so that should tell you that she's worked with the most successful companies. She's seen a lot of good things done, picked up a lot of best practices, assimilated all of that into her own company. And so she does have a bachelor's degree in operations management from Cal Poly Pomona, and she is able to help you from the master plan development all the way through property management. And it's my pleasure today to introduce to you Elizabeth Reynolds.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to be with you here with you all today. I hope you can hear me and see me really well. We are here at a great time where we've just defeated Prop 21 rent control, and here to discuss with you property management tips during COVID-19. And so without further ado, we'll get into the presentation. All right. So our agenda topics for today, we're going to cover the key guidelines regarding COVID-19, everything you must know, what you must issue, property management steps, what we are taking during this time with regards to our clients, our tenants, and our property management team members. We're going to discuss with you what our owners' concerns have been and how we have handled those concerns and addressed those needs, as well as some of our tenants' issues and comments and concerns and how we've addressed that. We'll also have a time at the end for Q&A. However, we do have a chat room that is live right now, and Olga Bravo will be assisting us with that. She is my operations manager. She's been with us for the past decade with increasing responsibilities. She's my right-hand person, And I'm privileged to have her with me today and meeting with you all to answer your questions. So feel free to put your questions into the chat, and those that are seem to be hot topics, Jeff will be addressing with us all at the end of a 20-minute session. So it's a cram-packed 20 minutes. I will move quickly so we make sure we have time for questions. So going into the COVID-19 key guidelines, you must know. And we can thank the Judicial Committee for putting these new guidelines into law outside of their authorities, which is, of course, at this time being challenged by Dennis Block and Associates and all of you who are probably helping to support that. But here they are, so we have to adhere to them. As you all know, pre-COVID, we could issue our 3-day pay or quit notices for any tenants who had not paid rent, residential or commercial. Once COVID took place, effective March 1st through August 31st, 2020, we had 3 documents we need to issue: the 15-day notice, March 1, 2020 to August 31, 2020, the COVID-19 Tenant Relief Act of 2020 notice, and the declaration of COVID-19 related to financial distress. For the commercial tenants, however, all those documents don't necessarily apply. We've been issuing them invoices so that they are aware of what the delinquencies are and working out rent payback plans, and we'll get into that more later. I just really want to get into the key documents you must know. Post-COVID period of time, which is September 1, 2020 through January 31, 2020, same 3 documents must go out with the alternative 15-day notice. So it's the 15-day notice for September 1, 2020 through January 31, 2020. One must go out, the COVID-19 Tenant Relief Act and the declaration form. And then again, just the invoices for the commercial tenants during the post-COVID time. Now, once we get to February 1, 2021, if there's still delinquencies, we can go back to issuing our 3-day pay or quit notices. Sorry about that. Sorry, excuse the other line. That will disconnect now. So we go back to our 3-day pay or quits for the residential. Now, as of January 1, 2021, we can go back to the 3-day pay or quits for the commercial tenants. Now, on the slide at the bottom of it, there's the link to the AOA site. All the forms are conveniently located there for you. We use them. They're fabulous. They keep them current, and I highly recommend you use the AOA forms on a regular basis. We do, and they're very effective and current, and we very much appreciate you guys providing those to us. So as we go to our next slide, we're going to discuss what actions can you take now that you've served the proper forms to the tenants. So there's 2 sides to that equation. If you still have delinquency, there's the collection component and there's the eviction component. So of course, we want to move forward with negotiating with these tenants. During early COVID period of time, it was rent payback plans, working those out so that they had time to pay those back and a time that works for us, and we were implementing those very successfully. If they got to the point to where that wasn't going to work out for them, we were having the conversations around keys for possession, and that's a really good win-win solution, so that if the landlord owner is willing to forgive some of the house due, we could get possession and move forward and create a win-win situation for the tenants. However, if for whatever reason that doesn't happen, the tenant needs to sign the declaration and return it. And they need to pay at least 25% of the back due balances from March 1 through January 31, 2021. And they have until January 31, 2021 to make that payment. That is the only obligation they have during that period of time in order to avoid eviction. If they make that payment, they sign those forms, they're in a stay position in the unit. What can you do as a property management company landlord? If you want the other 75%, that has to be proceeded in a small claims court situation, if you so choose to take that action. And that's really what it comes down to. The key is that they have to both sign the form and pay the 25%. And the best success we've had is through conversations, rent payback plans, keys for possession, or just transitions and getting alignment on what that transition is going to be with that tenant. Post-COVID, we go back to normal again, the 3-day pay or quits, and we can proceed with evictions. And please understand that the courts are impacted during the time that they were in lockdown, 6 to 9 months of backlog of cases. They would normally have, hundreds of cases a day on any given day, and those were all shut down. So just getting your summons and just getting a court date is going to be, 6 to 9 months out. So, negotiations is key because time is of the essence. The longer somebody's in a unit that can't afford to pay, the more costly it is for everybody, and not real constructive. So those are some of the key tips on the guidelines, what has to be served, and what your course of actions are regarding collections and evictions. The next slide, we're going to talk about property management, client focus. Some of the things that have been top of mind for our clients and some of the things we've done to really help in those focused areas. One has been collections, which we just discussed. Cost mitigation, be it tax, insurance, mortgage, with the uncertainty of what funds we're going to collect month over month, what can we defer, and working out with those different entities for deferments based on the COVID period of time and financial impacts. And we've been very successful in that area, and that's created a stronger cash flow for our clients during this period of time. Capital improvements have really gone by the wayside for a couple of reasons. One, for safety. We don't really want we don't really want vendors on site with their team members that may impact or affect our tenants in a negative way. We also want to hold back the funds for reserves as much as possible. So capital improvements really went by the wayside, and we put those projects on hold for 2021. And then, some of the other things we've needed to do that we've been asked about a lot is, late fees. What can we do about late fees? The courts are going to frown on that. When you show up in court with, months and months and months of late fees, it's just not going to be looked upon favorably. So really, late fees have been put on hold. And as you know, evictions have been put on hold due to the moratorium. And that's only related to the financial evictions. We can still proceed with evictions due to any other cause of action that's a breach of the lease, such as inappropriate behavior, disruption, destruction to the property, and disturbances and things like that. So certainly you can reach out to the attorneys and move forward for those cases. And you can couple in any funds due at that time, but you can certainly proceed on any other breach of the lease for an eviction. Communication has been very fluid, very dynamic, and it's really important during high change times. And I think we've all realized that through the course of our careers, that during high change, we have to have a high level of communication, and it needs to be in every form. It needs to be verbal, it needs to be written and text and timely, because the fluidity of change just creates a lot of questions, concerns, and mindset changes. And every client isn't the same. No person is the same. We all have a different way of how we want things rolled out, and we all have different perspectives. So getting that alignment with our clients is key, and it's really proved to be very successful as we rolled out these different guidelines with regards to their portfolios to make sure that they're happy and their needs are met, and it works well in those cultures and climates. Focus on operations. Operations has to continue. So if the lights aren't working, the plumbing's backed up, we still need to take care of those mission critical areas for our tenants and make sure everything's operational and habitable. That still has been going on, and we've been able to do that per CDC guidelines since the shutdown, and it's mandatory. So we've been very successful there, and the tenants do understand that. Of course, everybody's just following the PPE guidelines and so forth when doing so. Lease Up has been another big concern of our clients. Are we going to be able to do Lease Up? And we have taken action to make sure that when we do have turnovers, we've been able to get those leased up quickly and timely. There's been a lot of movement, and I'll get into that momentarily and discuss a bit more about how we've handled that. So on the next slide, we talk about property management with our tenant focus. And again, communication is key. And just like our clients, our tenants have a lot of questions and concerns during this time. If I can't make the payment, if I've lost my job, if my income has been reduced, if I'm on a whole different payment schedule, what can we do? So we're working out a lot of different payment plans, especially back in April and May, with some timeline criteria to that, so that they understand what those payments need to be in order to stay caught up by September. So we've been working at the payment plans and having a lot of discussions with them. When we receive the rent? It might not always be on the 1st. Maybe it's going to be on the 10th. Maybe it's going to be incremental throughout the month. That has changed, and we need to be fluid with the tenants' needs, because they've been changing and they're very much trying. We've been seeing, our tenants are really trying to make the rent payments. That's a priority for them. If they have job impacts, the last thing they want to do is really have impact on where they live and a disruption for their families. We have seen a difference in the reaction on, say, communities that are heavily populated with blue collar tenants versus the white collar tenants. And they, just in that the blue collar tenants seem to have struggled a bit more, and that they don't have the flexibility as some of the others to, say, work from home, and maybe have been more impacted by the layoffs. And then in the other communities, we've seen the ability to work from home, remote in, and not really such a disruption with regards to their ability to make the rent payments by the 1st. So definitely there's been a dichotomy to that regard. How has the government stimulus affected the ability of our tenants to pay rent? We definitely saw a higher level of on-time rent payments during the time where the government stimulus was being rolled out. That did certainly subside when it stopped, and we did start to see a higher levels of delinquency post the stimulus packages being rolled out. We also started to see more movement, and that could have been financial, it could have been health reasons or consolidation reasons, but we definitely saw more change post the stimulus packages being rolled out. And we've had to adjust for those reasons. And then moving on to, the movement. The movement and the leasing and why. Post-COVID, there's just really been a lot more movement. We've seen tenants moving out of the cities into the suburbs. We've seen people consolidating, as I mentioned earlier, financial and or health reasons, the stimulus packages. So just a lot more movement. But as people move out, more people are moving in for the similar reasons too. And at the end of the day, it's really treating our tenants as customers. We want our tenants and our clients to be customers for life, and really keep in mind, top of mind, how do you want to be known at the end of the day post-COVID? So really being a partner, and a partner for life for those individuals. Property management's team focus is a next topic we're going to get into. I'm a big believer that our clients' experience will never exceed our team members' experience. So we need to arm our team members with the right information, the right communication, and the right tools and systems to be successful, so that we are one united front and we are rolling out this information consistently, and we are successful as a team. And our clients will feel that, because our team members are empowered and they are knowledgeable, and they're handling these situations very professionally. So we've done that through, giving them the tools to have the empathy with the tenants, or giving them the right PPE equipment and the sanitation materials, so that their environments are sanitized, that the vacant units are sanitized, that when a prospective tenant comes in, they know it's clean. We can show it remotely by opening the doors, letting them come through, and sanitizing thereafter. We've used technologies such as virtual tours to create the virtual experience that our prospectives can see online on the website, social media, email blasts, so that really the people who come to see the unit are those that are most interested in renting there, and eliminate more of that face-to-face traffic, and minimizing that as much as possible. So that's been great. And then following up and closing the lease remotely through, DocuSign and email and those kinds of tools, so that again, we further minimize the face-to-face interaction. The safety of our tenants and the safety of our team members is really important. And as I mentioned earlier, the team members have been consistently adhering to the guidelines with regards to really taking care of the priority maintenance and repairs. We have had to defer the common area maintenance and improvements. And we also have had to, as per CDC guidelines, lock down some of the common areas such as clubhouses, pools, and spas during this time. But while we can't focus on some of those things, we can focus on sharpening the saw and taking care of the self-training we need to take care of, the annual training, so that we are better, faster, leaders within the industry, and using tools that AOA provides and Grace Hill and so forth to stay on top of mind with everything else that's going on. And then lastly, I just want to say, during this time is it's more and more difficult to manage properties. It's definitely a time for professional property management. We are here for our clients. We're here for all of you. If you ever need our support, we'd be more than happy to meet with you, talk with you, give you a free property assessment or consult. You can reach us at our email address. You can reach me directly at elizabeth@reynoldsrealtyadvisors.com. and or on our main number, 866-613-7772. And you can learn more about Reynolds Realty Advisors on our website, which is reynoldsrealtyadvisors.com. And we also have a Facebook site and some other social media places you can find us. So we look forward to hearing from you and talking with you in the near future. Thank you so much for the time.
Great, thank you so much, Elizabeth. And let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and get into questions now. And I see a question from Kathy on YouTube. Can we evict unpaid tenants starting January 1st, 2021? That's her question.
February 1st, we can start with the normal 3-day pay or quit notices for any past due rents. But yeah, the post-COVID period of time does run through January 31, 2021.
Great. That's very good. And also, just when people answer, when we have Elizabeth answer questions, some people have different opinions, just to throw that out, but she's got a whole lot of experience and I think you can trust what she has to say. But there are differences of opinion, not on that last question. Everyone would give you the same answer on that one, but just to put that out there. So here we go. The next question, and it's from Mr. O. When can we evict a tenant for cause violation of the rental agreement?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, if it's not financial, you can move forward with those evictions anytime. And I do recommend you move forward with your eviction attorney that you work with. And I will qualify, no, I am not an attorney. I am a broker. And I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, but I am not an attorney. So definitely consult your attorneys on the nuances and details of your particular situations, for sure.
Great. And here we have Etch Family Guy. And so maybe they're tuning in from somewhere outside of California, but yes, this is regarding the state of California. And thank you for tuning in, but yeah, you may not be benefited from hearing landlord tenant law questions being answered right now, but thank you. And we have a chat. We have Victoria in Los Angeles. How do you deal with additional tenants and non-payment of rent during COVID-19? Also, this additional, okay, we'll just do one question at a time. How do you deal with additional tenants and non-payment of rent during COVID-19? Okay. So maybe they got a tenant that is, yeah.
Situation, your lease is going to stipulate what you can do if an additional tenant is added. It might be for any additional tenant, provided of course it's in compliance with the number of tenants you can have in the unit. It's like an additional $150 a month, for example. So it's whatever that lease states that you've utilized. We use the AOA leases, and I believe that's there. So you have to fall back to what your lease states. As far as the rent collection, during COVID and post-COVID time, it really goes back to filing the proper paperwork that we mentioned earlier, all 3 forms. I would do it monthly as long as they're delinquent, and then I would move forward with the eviction post-COVID.
And I'm going to keep that question up because here's the second part. Also, this additional tenant smokes a lot of marijuana, and the original tenant signed a no smoking addendum to the lease. So how would you treat that one? What would you do, Elizabeth?
Yes, well, marijuana, as we all know, there's the medical use and there is the non-smoking clause. So in that situation, I would fall back to what does the lease say? And I would consult your eviction attorney. Is that something we can take action on? But prior to that, you may want to have the conversations with them, advising them that they did sign the non-smoking, that whether it's marijuana or cigarettes, you did sign non-smoking. This is say a non-smoking property. There are designated areas for which you could smoke, and we don't want to impact the community, the other tenants, and that would be in the best interest of you and everybody else if you could abide by that. And hopefully they're understanding. But if not, you may have to consult your eviction attorney to see what the next step might be.
Right. And what would you do in that specific case?
That's exactly what we would do. I would consult my team members, and we would have a conversation first. And we would see if they could change that behavior. And if they can't change that behavior and they do produce a marijuana medical form, then we still have the issue that you're smoking, and you're smoking a substance in the property. So we have to determine where you can take care of that and still not be a breach of the lease. So hopefully there's an area in the property that they can go to that accommodates that smoking in the designated smoking area. That's usually the best resolution. But if not, then we may have to take action to move them out of the property.
Okay, here's a good question from Sarah on YouTube regarding personal property. If the tenant has vacated the unit, leaving it vacant, and then they came in and they found some personal property that was left behind, what is the obligation to that tenant regarding that property as a landlord?
If it's under a certain dollar value, it's nominal, like under $500, $300, then that apartment can be cleaned out. We call it a bulky pickup, cleaned out and moved on. If it's substantial, the first thing we do is contact the tenant, let them know they left some items, personal items behind. We give them time to come back, make arrangements to get in, get the remaining items. If they sign a document that they are not planning to get those items, then we can go ahead with a bulky pickup, a dump and removal, and we move forward. Usually that gets handled pretty quickly because we're moving forward quickly to do the turnover, and they want to move on. If it gets drug out any longer than that, we have in some cases stored some items and made other arrangements, but usually it resolves relatively quickly one way or the other.
Great. From YouTube, we have Vale Varga. Do you think the state is going to lower taxes because of the economic impact?
Well, that's yet to be seen, right? We don't know if we're blue or red today. I can see Jeff, you've worn both just at your best. I mean, right? I think it depends on who lands in office. So we've got to really be conscientious about who we vote for at all levels, from the president down to governors, Congress, and everybody. So it's yet to be seen which way it's going to go.
Right. That's a very hopeful person. And I hope the same thing, that we can become maybe more like Texas or Idaho and have lower taxes, but not with the way things are right now, that's for sure. Here we are, Hermosa Property on YouTube. They're asking this question. Seems like rents are dropping in Southern California. How much has it dropped by metro, and how are you dealing with this in light of state rent control?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, Prop 21 has been defeated, and we are coming out of the COVID rent-controlled times. So, I know certain areas and cities have put their own particular ordinance on, but as far as the broad brush, I do see we're getting some relief. We've been fortunate to be able to continue to increase rents as we've had turnovers. We have owners that are putting enough money into the turnover to constitute the bringing it to market. We've had adhered to the rent increases annually prior to rent control. And then during rent control, we continue to apply those rent increases within the guidelines, whether it's national, statewide, or local. So I actually haven't seen rents coming down, although I do know that the state of California is definitely being impacted by the economy in a multitude of different ways. We do know that growth is coming down. We have more people exiting than entering. We do know that the population is coming down because of a number of different reasons. And we do know that the millennials are staying home, and the boomers are not downsizing. So we don't have the movement we used to have. So we don't have maybe as much of a strong surgence. I do think that, like real estate we've seen in the past, there are corrections in the market, and we might be hitting another correction. But through it all, I think that the best thing we can do now is just apply the rent increases on time when we can do them in compliance, and the rest of itself will likely just work out.
Here's another question that's kind of related. And so are you seeing any lag in being able to fill those vacancies? Like, is there maybe like last year at this time, was it filling up maybe 3 days faster than it is right now? Do you have any data on that for your company specifically?
I'm sorry. The November, December, January timeframes are traditionally slower lease-up times, just because we're getting into the holidays. So that's kind of a slow time anyway. I have seen lease-up happening really pretty quickly. Maybe slightly slower because of the hesitations around COVID, but we are still seeing a relatively quick lease up because there's a lot of different reasons why people are moving during COVID and post-COVID as well.
Great. Here's Patricia Torres on YouTube. Can I give notice to change the terms of the month-to-month agreement, rental agreement? For example, having them start to pay utilities.
Utilities. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can roll out the utilities to the tenants. The RUBS programs, the CUBS programs, there's a lot of companies out there that will take the bills themselves and distribute them out to the tenants for the tenants to pay, and then you can get that collection. And those are really nice programs when done well. We work with a couple of individuals in that space that are excellent. Those addendums are usually handled by those third-party entities and coupled and partnered in with the management companies. So if you want to reach out to me directly, I can give you a little bit more specific information on those offline. But I do recommend them because that would be quite a time-consuming effort to take on in its entirety.
Right, and that RUBS program, Livable, I don't know how many units that you own, but Livable does have they can do down to 2 units, and it's enterprise grade, really good software, so you can reach out to them. They even have a video here. If you look at the AOA USA YouTube, you'll be able to find it. If you're a member, you can log in and go on the video page and also find that one, and they have like a 20-minute presentation you could look at. And they're up in the Bay Area, but they're national. So, and here's one on YouTube: Anchorage Bay Crew. Can a 5% rent increase notice be served in November 2020 to be effective on February 1st, 2021?
For all the conversations I've had with attorneys, we start rent increases after the new year. During this time and during post-COVID, is not recommended to move forward with any kind of notices or rent increases at this time. So really hold off to the new year, and then let's reevaluate things at that time.
Great. Okay, here's Shari Parkavan. I have a commercial tenant that hasn't paid their 2019 CAM charges, which is owed pre-COVID. Can I issue a 3-day pay or quit notice and file a summons to get an eviction started?
Absolutely.
And this is in the city of LA.
Yes, to my knowledge, you can do that. Of course, again, check with your eviction attorneys, but anything pre-COVID, you can move forward with your 3-day pay or quits.
Great. Okay, from YouTube, Metro Prepper. How can you make a tenant sign a rental? Let's see. How can you make a tenant sign? Oh, okay. So they're asking, there's a tenant that needs to sign a rental agreement, but they're refusing to sign it. What would you do in that situation? They're an existing tenant and they need to sign a new, maybe it sounds like maybe the lease expired and they need to sign a new agreement.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I've never had a situation where I've had a tenant in a unit without a lease agreement, but well, of course, leases do come to term. Most of them have been written for 1-year leases. Going forward this year, there's been a lot of conversation about having shorter term leases, 6 months, 9 months for various reasons, and then even month to month. Most of the leases will say at the end of the term of the lease, they do roll to month, and all the terms and conditions of the original executed are valid and stay in play during the tenancy of the tenant. However, if you really feel strongly that they need to sign a new 1-year lease and they are refusing, you know, I mean, the best gonna be you're gonna have to get a meeting with them, or worst case scenario, you know, you can proceed to get them out of the unit if you're really not comfortable. Another option might simply be sending an amendment to the lease stating that you're putting them into you're extending the original lease for another, say, 6 months, referring back to the appropriate clauses, and issue it to them certified, no signature required. And then you can at least put that into your file to give you peace of mind, until which time you can have sort of more of a face-to-face meeting and alignment on that.
Great. From YouTube, Carol Caston. Do the new LA City rules allow tenant to bring a pet without paying the pet deposit? So are pet deposits obsolete now, I guess is the question.
Not to my knowledge. I haven't seen that. Doesn't mean that that hasn't come out. There's so much going on, really. But a pet is a pet, and a service animal is a service animal. And there's a distinction. A service animal is more like a wheelchair. So you don't have a pet deposit for a wheelchair. You don't have rent for a wheelchair. It is a assistant tool to the tenant that needs it, and that's it. A pet is a pet, and a pet, like a tenant, can, you know, you can require, as I understand it, a deposit and additional rent for that pet. We issue a separate and I've done it throughout various cities in LA County. It's a separate pet addendum, which states the deposit, it states the rent, and so on and so forth. And again, there is the distinction between service animal and pet.
How much do you normally get for pet rent? Now, what's kind of the going, what's a reasonable amount to ask for it? I bet that would be the follow-up question on that one.
That's about $25 a month.
Okay, there you go. All right.
Properties that we have that really aren't dog friendly. There's some that are, and they might be, you know, a little bit more, but $25 seems to be the average.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Raquel Michael from YouTube. Are there any restrictions on rent increases at this time? So this question, you kind of hit on it already, but I'll let you.
Yeah, really, rent increases are on hold at this time. We really need to revisit it come the new year. And when I say the new year, that's really past January 31, 2021. That is past post-COVID. And then we really need to see where we're at. Yeah, that's probably the best recommendation I can make. Let's check in with the guidelines at that time. Let's see what everybody's saying, and then move forward judiciously and cautiously, and then timely. As soon as we can, we do need to roll them out. And I know AOA posts a lot of that information, so I'm sure we'll know more come the new year.
Great. And here's George on YouTube. How do you identify or handle critical maintenance with your tenants? I guess maybe the tenant doesn't think it's critical, but the landlord knows it's critical. So how do you deal with that?
Always with our notices, 24-hour notice to enter. And then you have a key and you advise them that you will be using your key if they're not at home or not available, and then you are able to move forward and enter. It is important that you're able to take care of the property for the safety of not only them, but the other surrounding tenants, and to mitigate costs. But yeah, it's all about the paper trail and serving the right paper notice.
Great. And on YouTube, we have Renee. My tenant has ignored both 15-day notices. What should I do?
If they have ignored the 15-day notice, they have not signed the declaration, and they have not paid the 25% of the amount due, then likely what's going to happen is come February 1, you'll be serving them a 3-day pay or quit for the amount due during the post-COVID time. Again, consult your eviction attorneys, make sure you're serving that correctly, because I believe there's a limit to the amount up to the 25% of the balance due. And then you can proceed. If they don't pay, then you can move forward with the eviction at that time.
Right. And you had mentioned collections before as a good option, but they have to be out of the unit.
Right. Beyond that, you can take them to small claims court for any other balances due. Prior to that, rent payback plans we've seen work out to be very successful, because they may know money's coming, or may have a hard time with the cash flow right now, but are willing to make those payments. But if we're blown by all of that, then we're right around the corner from February 1. So if you can't get the collection through rent payback plan, promise to pay dates, then you're likely going to be serving a 3-day pay or quit for the funds due come February 1.
Yeah. And I'll correct myself. You can't report them to the credit bureaus unless they're out of the building. You can, they're sending them to collections while they're in there. I wonder, that's a whole nother thing that I would be curious about.
I'm not sure about that part.
Yeah,
but
probably need to be out.
Landlords and management companies do have the option to take them to small claims court for the remainder balance, but we can't evict for the 75%. We can only evict post-COVID, post the new year, February 1 for the 25%.
Great. Okay. There are tons of questions in the chat. You guys are amazing viewers, and we're just going to keep hammering it. If you have the stamina, Elizabeth.
I'll let you call it.
No, we'll keep going and going here as long as you're good. I purchased a rent control building in November. One tenant has not paid since August. The seller is elderly and cannot recall what notices they served. There was one required on September 30th. Can I immediately serve the September 30th notice to protect my rights and start an eviction on February 1st? That's a good question.
Yes, I think you're spot on there. In fact, you can serve those 3 notices we discussed each month for the amount of funds due. So you can serve that in November and in December and again in January. And then you can proceed come February 1, you can start your process to move out.
All right. The next question, Georgia. What do we do if a tenant started paying now but owes back rent? So I guess this is a question that's answered in the magazine as well, but I'll go ahead and let you answer it.
So I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? If the tenant starts paying rent now, but
they owe back rent. So the question is really, when do you apply it? What month do you apply that rent to? Back to the last time they paid rent? So yeah, or is it this month's rent that you would apply that money to?
So typically the way it's booked is when the funds come in, unless they're stipulated for a particular month or purpose, the funds are booked to the earliest delinquency.
Right. That's exactly what we have. That's exactly what Dennis Block said in the magazine this month. So
Yeah. So bringing it forward and bringing it current. So then, so that's how we've applied it. If it's pre-COVID money, you can do your 3-day pay or quit. If it's COVID and post-COVID, you're serving all of those forms and notices, and then when it gets back to normal time, you're back to your 3-day pay or quit. But yeah, we've been booking the funds into the oldest delinquency, bring it forward.
great. Here's Sylvia on YouTube. Are notices of rent increases given after March 1st valid?
Our notices of rent increases given on March 1st valid. I'll be honest with you, we stopped rent increases and we did do some rollback. I would suggest not. I don't think that's going to be enforceable. I would think that you'd probably want to have rolled that back if you haven't already, but socializing that with, say, Dennis Block would be a good idea, to be sure, depending on the city and the county and so forth. There's a lot of differences from city to county and so forth about rent increases. But we have not rolled out rent increases during COVID or post-COVID. It's been kind of a big no-no, and anything that did go out because we didn't realize it was going to happen, we did roll back.
Right. Very good. Here comes the RUBS question again. If my builder has only one water meter, how can I get the current tenants to start paying for the water bill when it's a 4-unit property?
Right.
So
Yeah.
besides the RUBS, maybe what else could you tell us that they would need to do before they could start requiring that?
Yeah. It's typically costly to sub-meter to each unit. That's why the RUBS program has been very affordable, in a easy solution to roll out. Whether or not you distribute that cost to them yourselves, or you use a third-party vendor, that's really the recommended way to go. I don't know of a third option, quite frankly, off the top of my head. There might be one that I'm just not aware of.
Right. And so again, Livable is the name of the company that would handle a 4-unit. Most of the RUBS programs out there they're built for large property management companies and lots of units. So Livable would be a good one for you. Here's a chat. It's Jenny in Los Angeles. How are you dealing with common areas during COVID? Do you recommend closing pools?
Yes, per CDC guidelines, common areas did need to close down. So pools, spas, houses, rec centers were locked down. We did put signs. We did notify them as to why. And then as soon as we could reopen. As of most recently, we have, unlocked the spas, some of the smaller areas with limited occupancy for now.
And are you doing that with, I know that there's the whole color coordinated system for COVID and everything. And so if things surge, you'd close those back down. And are you pegging that to a color?
Yes, we're definitely following the CDC guidelines based on what we can do in the different regions and areas, and we are reacting, either opening or closing as we can. But it's very limited, very, very limited. Yeah.
Great. On YouTube, Diane, what is the repayment period after January 31st, 2021 for the balance of unpaid rent from 2020?
My understanding is that come February 1, if that rent isn't in the 25% of the past due balance, you can start moving forward with the 3-day pay or quit. Now, I would certainly suggest a conversation with the tenants to get a promise to pay date in February. And if that blows by, then maybe serve it at that time. But they don't have a significant extended period of time. And I think that was the whole intent behind post-COVID time, to give the tenants the time for recovery and then making the payments come the 1st of February.
And Stacy Cochran, regarding vacate notice to tenants currently? Are owners required to offer 1 month rent credit or payment to every tenant being asked to vacate?
During, and that does vary from different regions and counties and cities and so forth, how much and all of that. Definitely during the COVID period of time, there was either a month or multiple months and on all of those calculations. I would just suggest, again, talking with your attorneys to find out for that particular situation, that particular area, how much rent do we need to offer to have them vacate. And there's a whole, it was AB 1832, 1382. I forgot the number.
1482, 1482 maybe.
It's, there's several pages about the criteria, why the vacation, why they need to vacate, is it going to be a rehab? Is it going to be a remodel? Is it an emergency situation? So it depends on the intent, the reason, and the county. And so there's a lot of things that I would just refer back to your ordinances.
Great. And we have Michael on YouTube. Is there a website for the source of all the COVID related regulations? Do you have a go-to website that you've been using?
DOA USA.
Hey, I kind of opened myself up. I was willing to hear something different, but thank you. Thank you very much.
We rely heavily on AOA USA site. They keep it current. They keep their forms current. We work closely with Dennis Block and Associates to get additional information. But yeah, AOA site, great.
Great, thank you. High fives back and forth. Right, okay, here we go. Hermosa property, is this why 6 month or 9 month leases are preferred from the owner's perspective?
Correct. Shorter leases are preferred because once you hit that 1 year mark, there are more requirements about offering relocation, months rent and things like that. So the shorter the term, the more favorable it is for owners, landlords.
Great. Here's Alina on YouTube. Are you allowed to move someone out if you yourself want to move into the unit?
Yeah, again, I mean, you can certainly give a 30-day notice to vacate, but you have to be in compliance with AB 1482 and understand the circumstance and the situation. And during COVID, that's probably not going to be a more difficult.
Right. So that's one of those just cause issues, it sounds like. And here we go. Next one, Facebook from Yuzo. And maybe they're in Hawthorne. Okay, yeah, I'm an owner in Hawthorne. I have a valid case for eviction. She fits the criteria for eviction during COVID. Threatening the landlord with a weapon. Okay. She's refusing entry for repairs and uses COVID as an excuse. Will the courts use this against me if I go in to fix the problems, to repair these the essential things, the critical things that need to be repaired?
That's sort of a fully loaded question. Yes, you can move forward in an eviction if they are in breach of the lease. You do have the right, you should have the right as per your lease, and you'd have to check your lease, right to enter for emergency purposes, given a 24-hour notice and so forth. You may want to consult your eviction attorney to get some additional advice in those situations. I do try to stay away from specific legal advice on specific situations and defer back to the attorneys, of course. But as I mentioned earlier, in general, you can evict for non-financial reasons during COVID and post-COVID. And you just need it, right? You just need to have all the documentation stacked in your file.
All right, here's Hermosa property. With AB 1482, you must have just cause to terminate a tenant after 365 days. Is there a reason for an owner to have a new lease signed after 1 year?
Well, a lot of landlords and management companies like to have leases executed for a particular term. I do recommend the shorter terms. You can let it roll to month thereafter. And many times, we will. It gives you more flexibility as a property management company and a landlord. You don't necessarily need to lock in long term unless you're really looking to have stable income. Maybe you're in a volatile area where you have more transitions or more movement. But short of that, month to month works well in a lot of cases.
Okay, great. Okay, and Shari Parkavan again, for commercial tenants in the city of Los Angeles, can we start evictions February 1st, 2021?
Yes.
Okay, Anchorage Bay Crew again. So rent increases and late fees are told until after January 31st, 2021.
I was saying, as far as rent increases go, I would wait till after the new year, after post-COVID, which come February 1, 2021, we really need to look at the guidelines for what the rent increase allowances are at that time. That could change between now and then, and I think we're all waiting to see what those guidelines are going to be.
Okay, great. Here's a question from YouTube, from QMHSIA. I have had to turn over last last month and realize most new tenants during COVID time are better qualified and prepared than usual. They are not from eviction, but with savings and jobs. Okay, so I guess this is more of a statement. They've been upgrading, I guess. They've been getting better tenants, so they're definitely blessed, right?
It is a blessing. We've seen a lot of that ourselves too, and it's been great.
Right. And with that, I have seen some reports from TransUnion and just other data that the fraud on the rental application is also going up. So that's one thing that you definitely still want to make sure that you check everything out.
Yes, and we use AOA's tenant screening.
Oh, there we go.
Make sure that we're verifying the tenant's information through that screening tool, as well as the background checks and the referral checks and the employment checks. So, we're looking at a lot of sources, but we definitely use AOA site for that as well.
Great. And Patrick, I was under the impression that the 25 payment requirement was only for the post period and does not apply to the protected period. That's a good question right there. Is he correct in that?
My understanding was that it was for in duration, but we can follow up on that and get back to everybody.
Right. Yeah. So there's the protected period and then the unprotected. Okay. So yeah, you hear it a couple times and then it just kind of goes out the other side. So call Dennis Block. Call into AOA here and we can give the answer for you if you're a member. All right. Patrick Baldwin. Okay. No. Maria Del Vasto. How should I handle RSO tenant that is not paying rent? Tenant is very litigious, and since the state law is in conflict with the LA local ordinance, I am avoiding getting sued. So RSO tenant.
I'm not quite sure I captured the question in my mind.
So they have a tenant that's not paying.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just wondering because they're RSO, if they're just afraid to do anything, it sounds like, with them regarding eviction.
Yeah, maybe just consult Dennis Block and the best advice in terms of how to proceed.
Okay, in the chat, let me see, we have Allison. If the owner was told non-payment of rent is due to unit repairs and not to COVID, should the owner still give a 15-day pay instead of 3-day pay rent or quit? Okay, so you get the question, right? The tenant's saying that it's because it's not livable. There's something wrong with, there's something that needs to be repaired in the building. And so that's why I'm not paying rent. It's not because of COVID. That's their reasoning. So in that instance, would you give them a 15-day pay rent? Or
Where tenants are withholding rent for years or infestation and all of those things, we're sending in, we would normally initially send in our team members to take care of those situations. If they're continuing to cause concern or lack of payment as a result of non-repair or infestation, then we're sending in third-party vendors to address those situations and cure them and provide third-party reports for stacking the leasing file. And then, the next step, especially during COVID time, because it is tied back to the lack of payment and they're creating the cause as to your lack of performance, I would get with, an attorney to discuss next steps, because it isn't extremely, directly straightforward. It's not just simply lack of payment, but if you can show that you've performed and they're not stating that it's a financial reason that they're not paying, they're just saying that you haven't done the repairs. But if you can prove you've done the repairs and your file is stacked with the third-party reports, then you may be able to move forward. But again, I would consult an attorney to make sure you're going forward in the right direction.
right. And you can always call in. And anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap up. But I just wanted to thank you so much, Elizabeth, for taking all those extra calls. You didn't realize you were going to be put on the hot seat and have to answer all the landlord-tenant law questions, did you?
Thank you. I'm always available to you all and the members, so feel free to reach out to us even after the session.
Great. And so your information should be appearing on the screen for them to see and how to get a hold of you. Also, just again, want to mention that we have these articles every single month in the magazine, and it's specific to your area. So whether you're in Alameda or whether you're in San Diego, whatever part of California you're in, there's specific questions that are being asked locally that are in your local magazine. And a lot of the questions that were asked today are in the magazine. And you can get you can look at the magazine online if you go to the AOA USA website, as well as just in the hard copy. Things are changing so quickly that sometimes, we put that magazine together almost 2 months before things happen. So sometimes things are so dynamic, they've changed already. But don't be afraid to look at the magazine. And also, if you want to sign up for the e-newsletter, go ahead and write to us at membership@aoausa.com, and make sure you share your first name, last name, and zip code, and then we'll get appropriate information to you. If you're in Los Angeles, you don't need to hear about Tri-County stuff or Bay Area stuff up north. But anyway, so we want to make that specific information that'll benefit you, as our goal is to help you, right? And don't forget to subscribe and activate that notification, that little bell, so that you get notifications when we do go live, and that way you won't miss out. And if you liked it, share it with hit that like, share it with your friends. Remember, November 12th, we have another live stream that'll talk, and they will be sharing how to deal with roof maintenance. And then on November 19th, we will have Dennis Block come on and give a presentation. So again, thank you for being housing providers. Thank you for voting and fulfilling your civic duty. And we will all hope for the best and for the best people to be put in all these different offices. And hopefully we can trust the process and make it through this crazy ordeal, right? Again, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.